for joining us for the 25th anniversary celebration and online rally of Alliance for Global Justice against the attacks on us and the whole Palestinian solidarity movement. I'm Camille Landry, part of the staff collective at AFGJ, and I am joined here by Elaine Spivak-Rodriguez, Tanya Nunez, and James Jordan, coming to you from various parts of the country and deeply committed to carrying on the work that we have been doing for 25 years and that we will continue to do despite the attacks against us, despite any kind of opposition, despite massive force being brought against us and our comrades to silence our voices as we stand against genocide, as we stand against oppression, and as we do the work of liberation. And again, thank you very much, because you are a very important part of this process. And without you and your support, we could not do the work that we do. So I'd like to introduce Elaine, who is one of our longest tenured members of the AFGJ collective. And Elaine, I've got a simple question for you. Why are we here today?
Yeah, we're here today to both celebrate our 25 years in existence, celebrate the end of the year, and share space and with our supporters and with each other, and to raise some money as well. This is our end of year virtual fundraising event, and we have been under attack this year, and we'll talk more about that later on, but we've had to do a lot of shifting and a lot of different things to be able to continue our work, and we've been largely successful, and I think this is our time to celebrate, talk about that work, and share some words from our supporters.
Thank you. Now, when you say we're under attack, what kind of attacks are you talking about? Are people calling us names? Are people insulting our work? Are people physically blocking us? What's going on that constitutes an attack on Alliance for Global Justice and our solidarity partners?
Yeah, well, this attack is called deplatforming, and aptly called deplatforming. It's been pretty effective because the tactic is to go after our online credit card processors and scare them into dropping Alliance for Global Justice as a customer. So they claim there are claims, totally unfounded, that we are funding terrorism, which is a very electric or it's not anything that a financial institution wants to hear. So instead of spending the time to investigate whether we are, there's no due process, and we're just dropped from platforms. And this can create a whole host of issues in its wake. So there have been a few times where we've had money from the entire, donations from the entire month returned to donors. We've had donations not returned to donors and just kept by the platform. There's a whole host of things that have happened, and we're just continue to try to shift, and we are now collecting donations by check instead of online, which is a challenge in itself because several people don't have checks. But we continue our work, and we are going to continue finding ways to raise funds for our work, the work of Alliance for Global Justice, but also that of our fiscally sponsored projects, which this attack has impacted them as well.
talk a little bit more, if you can, Elaine, about what a fiscally sponsored project is and why this harms them so unfairly.
Yeah, we have about 120 to 140 fiscally sponsored projects. These are projects and organizations that do not have their own C3 status and are able, through fiscal sponsorship, to raise funds and for it to offer tax deductible donations to their donors, and a way to use their funds. We do all of the expenditure reporting, and they're able to do their work. So we're essentially the back end for these projects that allow them to really focus on the work that they're good at. And then we're able to manage the IRS reporting, all of the back end that goes into operating a nonprofit.
I'd like to say that I operate one of those fiscally sponsored projects, and Elaine, you are my hero. And the reason for that is we're a very small and very broke organization that provides literacy training and cultural events. We have a bookstore. We provide we act as a community hub for organizing and actually for direct support. We feed people. We fix people's brake lights so they won't get stopped by the cops. We do that kind of thing. Really grassroots organization with no significant amount of funding. So the inability to collect $25 donations from the neighborhood association nearby that typically come in through credit card has really crippled us. So these cowardly attacks aren't just against AFGJ doing work for global justice at a rather high level. They're also affecting small organizations like mine who just want to help fourth graders in a school district that's one of the lowest performing in the entire nation. We just want to help those fourth graders learn how to read, but they've hamstrung us. So I also want to point out that, because a lot of people would say, well, where there's smoke, there's fire. If there weren't something going on there, they wouldn't be able to point a finger of blame at AFGJ. And I'd like to remind people who say those things about just how conservative the banking industry is. There's no such thing as a progressive bank. They're all highly conservative, not only conservative in terms of being averse to taking any kinds of risk, they're conservative politically. People who are struggling for liberation don't typically become bankers. It's people who have an opposite kind of political outlook on the world. And so this is what we're facing as an organization, really as a group of organizations, just trying to do the work that we have always done and finding that that people are unfairly labeling this work as being something negative. And, we've seen this before. We saw this in the 1950s with the McCarthy movement, when anybody who said anything that ran counter to the really highly conservative voices that were in control of the U.S. government was labeled a communist and often jailed, run out of the country, lost jobs, lost housing, lost families, that kind of thing. So we're going to talk a little bit later in this program about exactly how that's working, because it's not just AFGJ. It is in cities, in states, on college campuses, even in churches, from Maine to Mississippi to San Diego to, the Canadian border, throughout this country, where people's voices are being silenced as they call for freedom, as they call for an end to genocide, as they call for solidarity. We've seen this before, and I want to remind all of you that if they come for us, they can and will come for you.
One more thing to add, Camille.
Yep.
The other dynamic that we're seeing right now in this campaign is that these Zionists are going after our funders as well. Mm-hmm. So they're contacting foundations. Foundations have a long history of being very closely related to banks, And so they're very similarly averse to any kind of risk and are easily scared. There are some really fantastic foundations that have actually taken a stand to continue to support AFGJ and organizations that have been under attack. But there are some that are taking proactive measures to end their funding of Alliance for Global Justice and all of our fiscally sponsored projects.
Absolutely. This is a really cowardly kind of attack pattern. Not only is it cowardly, it's absolutely dishonest. Trying to equate wanting to stop genocide with being anti-Semitic, first of all, it's crazy. It makes no sense. And it's incorrect and it's wrong on so very many levels. But we're unable to move past that point because other people are controlling the narrative, and the banks, I might add. So we have no power against banks.
Speaking of controlling the narrative, I think the other really important component to this is that there have been, in the Washington Examiner, about 54 articles since January about Alliance for Global Justice. So there is a real strong effort to be able to create this narrative online that supports all of these deplatforming efforts that are happening.
And in point of fact, and we need to wrap this up right quick, but in point of fact, these attacks actually started long before October 7th. They started long before 2023. The Washington Examiner has been after Alliance for Global Justice for years, pecking away at us because we do the work of the people, we do the work of liberation. And that apparently leaves a bad taste in some people's mouths. But speaking of taste in your mouth, I want to give you something better to chew on for a moment, and I want to bring back on James Jordan. James has the dubitable honor of being the AFGJ staffer who's been around for the longest, but he's also a heck of a musician, and he's got something to say about all this.
Well, first of all, I'm just really glad to be here, and I'm glad that folks are watching. This year for us, as you can see, we're fighting, to keep doing the great work that AFGJ is doing, and we'll be having a chance to hear about it throughout this. And excuse me, but it is an act of resistance, especially this time with the attacks we're under, to contribute to by sending a check, if you can, to 225 East 26th Street, Tucson, Arizona, zip code 85713. That's 225 East 26th Street. The zip code is 85713. And a lot of people don't use checks, so we have some ways you can contribute to. If you drop us a line and make a pledge, send an email to afgj@afgj.org, and we'll get back to you. I mean, resisting can be hard work, but can also be a joy because you meet the best people in the world. And it comes from the soul. We know what we're resisting for, what we're trying to save. I met the people from Taller del Sur a few years ago when we were one of the founding members of the People's Human Rights Observatory, or Observatorio de los Derechos Humanos de los Pueblos. It's an international coalition. And anyway, Taller del Sur is a band that's part of this, and they recorded a very special couple of songs for us. Take it away, Taller del Sur. Okay, we need a minute more, so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about. Okay, here, we're ready to roll.
Desde la Ciudad de México, el Grupo Taller del Sur.
Para las y los compañeros. de la Alianza por la Justicia Global.
En el marco de su 25 aniversario.
Iniciamos con esta canción que dice Protesta. 1, 2, 3, 4. La gente protesta, algo pasa, algo sucede. Cuando la gente se junta, algo viene, algo viene. Porque protesta la gente, ¿cuál será su malestar? ¿Qué es lo que siente la gente? Continuamos con la siguiente canción que lleva por título Yo vengo a ofrecer mi corazón, de un argentino, Fito Páez, y la dedicamos a todos esos pueblos que luchan en el mundo por la paz y la justicia. Colombia, Argentina, Bolivia, Perú, Palestina, entre otros. Dice así: yo vengo a ofrecer mi corazón. Él dijo que todo está perdido. Yo vengo a ofrecer mi corazón. Tanta sangre que se llevó el río. de esperanza. Hablo por la vida, hablo por la nada, hablo de cambiar esta nuestra casa, de cambiarla por cambiar más.
On live.
Alliance for Global Justice. My name is Natalia. I'm a program coordinator for AFGJ, and I've been working with the organization for a few years now. I'm here with one of our board members, Kathy Hoyt, to talk about a bit about AFGJ's roots and its history of solidarity with Nicaragua. So welcome, Kathy. Thank you so much for joining us today. How did you first get involved in the Nicaragua work, and what were some of your most formative experiences there?
Well, I first went to Nicaragua in 1966 with the SS Hope Hospital ship, and I married one of the young residents, a pediatric resident, on the ship because it was a medical education ship in the 60s. And he was a pediatrician. He set up his practice in his hometown of Matagalpa, and I did volunteer work there. And I think one of my most formative experiences in the very early years that we were in Matagalpa was working with malnourished children. And we started a program with a progressive priest in the neighborhood where we lived that time. And we had some good results, but every time we needed some help from the government, some project that they could have helped us out with, the help didn't come through. And we realized that, the Somoza dictatorship was not interested in the poor majorities of its people. And I think that was a formative experience for me.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's really intriguing to hear about how you came into the work and to be learning more about the legacy that's unfolded from these experiences. Would you be able to share a bit about what led to the founding of the Nicaragua network that you became involved in, and what kind of work you were doing back in the 80s?
Well, while we were preparing for the final offensive of the revolution in 79 up in the United States, US citizens and Nicaraguans from different cities were planning a big conference in February. I think it was the 24th of February of 1979. It took place in Washington, and the representative of the Casas Nicaragua from all over the states came together and founded the Nicaragua Network. And the Nicaragua Network had support from some major figures like the mayor of Washington, D.C., and a senator and a representative. And so that was an important date. And then with the triumph of the revolution in July of that same year, then the work began of supporting the revolution and sending people down to work in help out in the coffee harvest, and providing information about what was going on down there. We had we now publish a weekly news called Nica Notes, but back then it was the Nicaragua hotline, and you dialed up on the telephone and listened, and that was how people were contacted with the news from Nicaragua, and published materials that went out by a snail mail, of course. And meanwhile, I was working in a daycare center. There I was weighing and measuring malnourished children and seeing them recover from malnutrition, which was extremely satisfying. But I was recruited to translate for the legislative body, and so that's what I was doing more into the mid-'80s. And then when I returned to the States in the mid-'80s, I worked for a Michigan organization that did a lot of different solidarity work with all the Central American countries, including Pledge of Resistance, which was the Nicaragua network was very important in the Pledge of Resistance, which organized demonstrations, civil disobedience, trying to get arrested in protest for things like the contra-aid votes in the Congress. And I could tell numerous stories about the activities that the Nicaragua Network in Washington was one of the groups that helped to decide when to call for an action. And then it let us know at the grassroots when the actions were to be called in the entire country. Sometimes we would have 2,000 people arrested within a couple of days in different actions. And the Nicaragua Network at the same time was sending thousands of people down to Nicaragua and to work and to learn what was going on in Nicaragua all during this period. And then in '87 is the year that our late colleague Chuck Hoffman joined and put the fundraising in order of the Nicaragua Network. Because that was his thing and made a big difference for what the Nicaragua Network could do. And yeah, so that was the 80s, the years that when the revolution was in power in Nicaragua, and we were in solidarity with the revolution. And when they lost the elections of '90, then we started working on different things that were connected, economic things opposing the austerity programs of the IMF and World Bank, which were imposed on Nicaragua and other countries, and opposing CAFTA and activities like that. So that's what the Nicaragua Network was doing in those years before the Alliance for Global Justice was founded.
Curious to know more about the process that led to the eventual founding by the Nicaragua Network of Alliance for Global Justice. What kind of work AFGJ has been doing in solidarity with Nicaragua and how it's continuing that history and that legacy of solidarity with Nicaragua. Would you be able to share a bit more about that?
Well, it came because we were working on so many different things that were broader than Nicaragua. We took in the campaign for labor rights. 50 years is enough campaign, which was an anti-globalization. And other groups we were the fiscal sponsor for. And it just seemed like the Nicaragua Network was too limited a name for an organization that was doing broader work. And so in 1998, all of us who were working at the staff that we had and also the board, we had a little contest among ourselves to name it. And there were a lot of, I can't even remember all the different offerings, but there were quite a few different ideas for the name of this organization. But the one that won out was Alliance for Global Justice. And in 1998, we got the nonprofit status and became the Alliance for Global Justice with the Nicaragua Network as sort of the founding project, not as a fiscally sponsored project, but as an integral part of the Alliance for Global Justice. And from then on, Nicaragua work has been an integral part of the Alliance for Global Justice. We continued with the broad work that concerned Nicaragua and getting the information out every week and every month. But when it was interesting when the Sandinistas came back into office in 2007, January 2007, then we had a project to support and to put out information about what they were doing. The new Sandinista government hired people that we have been working with against privatization of water and against fees for schools and various issues like that came on board as working for the new government. So that was an exciting moment.
Wow, yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, like I said, as someone who's just coming into this work, it's really inspiring to hear from you and learn from your reflections as a lifelong Nicaragua solidarity activist. I think to close us off, I would be interested in hearing, what do you think are the most effective ways AFGJ can continue to strengthen its solidarity with Nicaragua and the Sandinista revolution?
Well, I think what we're doing now is a good way to move forward, which is sponsoring delegations of people to learn what's going on in Nicaragua, continuing with the information work. And the most important thing, I think, is because there's a lot of the mainstream media is not supportive of the Nicaraguan revolution. I think that we need to continually highlight the achievements that they've made in things as diverse as renewable energy. They're up to a lot depends on if the wind is blowing and the water is flowing through the hydroelectric dams. When the geothermal, I guess, is pretty steady, but they have all these different kinds of renewable energy, and it's up around 80%, depending on the day. To the vast lowering of levels of poverty, lowering of maternal and infant mortality, and a very good record with the international agencies on effectively completing projects that has them highly ranked. I think we need to continue to get all that word out, send people down to learn about Nicaragua, and continue to get out the good news to counteract some of the news that we see in the media.
Thank you so much for joining us, Kathy. It's really great to hear from you. And again, it's really inspiring and energizing to learn about AFGJ's history and legacy in the Nicaragua solidarity work.
Well, this has been a very difficult time for the Alliance for Global Justice. And it shocking how it came on suddenly and just as increased in attacks in different ways on our finances and our ability to raise money for ourselves, our fiscally sponsored projects, our work, and other people's work of many different kinds. So if you can help us out, we're doing the work and supporting many projects that also do good work. But if we weren't there, they would be in bad shape. So we need to keep ourselves going, and I hope that you can help.
Thank you, Kathy. And just a reminder that to donate to AFGJ, you can go to afgj.org/donate-AFGJ.
Thank you so much, Natalia, and thank you, Kathy. That was a fascinating recount of the history of AFGJ and an indicator of how important it is that this work go on. It's not a matter of what happens to this individual organization. This is an issue of what happens to the work that we are doing. What happens to the work of standing in solidarity with the people's revolutions in Nicaragua and other nations right here on the doorstep of the United States? What happens to people who are working for justice within the borders of the United States? What happens to the voices who were raised in opposition to colonialism, neoliberalism? What happens to the people who stand up and say, no UN troops, no troops of any kind being sent to Haiti? What happens to that if voices like the voice of Alliance for Global Justice are silenced? There's an old, you're undoubtedly familiar with this. Martin Niemöller was a Lutheran pastor in Germany during the 30s and 40s, and he very famously said something that I'm going to paraphrase. He said, first they came for the Palestinians, and I didn't speak out because I am not a Palestinian. And then they came for the organizers, and I did not speak out because I was not an organizer. And then they came for the students and professors, and I did not speak out because I was not an academic. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out. Let us not make that mistake again. We have to stand firm, all of us in solidarity, all of us in opposition to the powers that would silence our voice, that the powers who would silence your voice, to the people who would deny the right to the basic fundamental human rights and the right to determine your own course of yourself and your nation. If you believe, as we believe, that freedom and democracy and liberation are critical, and protection of the planet are critical to the survival of the species and to the institution of justice, then I'm asking you now, get out your checkbook and write a check to Alliance for Global Justice. And I think we have across the bottom of the screen there an address, 225 East 26th Street in Tucson, Arizona, 85713. And send an email. If you don't have a checkbook and you don't want to go get one, there's some other options. Send us an email, a pledge to info@afgj.org, and somebody will get back to you immediately to tell you how you can make a donation to Alliance for Global Justice to help keep our work alive, but most importantly, to help fight back, struggle against those powers and those processes and those individuals and those organizations who would silence my voice, who would silence your voice, who would silence the voices of the millions of people demanding equity, demanding justice, demanding freedom and democracy here and every place else.
Hi, Camille. We
So,
should go ahead and move on to the next segment here. If I could jump in there and do a quick wrap up of what we just saw and where we're going.
okay, are you going to do that?
Yes. We just got a little off script by accident. We cut short the Taller del Sur, and we're going to make a link available and also send out an alert put on our webpage so you can watch that whole show. It's a lot of fun. And Tanya did the translation for that. And we accidentally broke into that. And with Kathy Hoyt, I want to tell a little bit about who she is. I mean, she talked about who she is, but she is one of the people there that was there from the very beginning with the founding of the Nicaragua Network 45 years ago next year, and with the founding of the Alliance for Global Justice, and still on the board. And she's talking with Natalia Schurman, who is one of our youngest and newest members. So, some just shows you, that was good to see, because Natalia's taking on a lot of the Nicaragua solidarity work. So I don't think I don't think Kathy's let go of the baton yet, but there's some passing on of duties and information. So I'm just going to real quickly wrap up. We're a Latin America solidarity organization, but we're part of a larger, broad anti-imperialist movement and movement for liberation. And that's why we get involved in Palestine solidarity and anti-war work. And we do that very much through our fiscal sponsorship work that Elaine talked about. And right now, of course, we all need to be standing strong with Palestine. But those who stand strong with Palestine are being attacked too, because the goal is international impunity for Israel in this assault. And it affects Latin America in so many ways. We're going to talk, there's a video Tanya did about Haiti and Palestine that's really good. But like, for instance, the people's president in Colombia is under attack because he stood really strong with with Palestine. So I'm just going to do a multi-introduction here really fast because it's all connected. And and I didn't mention our human rights school, which is what us bringing home some of what we've learned in our international solidarity to the United States. And I hope people look into that and register. But just real quickly, we're going to have several guests in a row. We're going to have Vicky Cervantes is going to talk a little bit about the Alliance for Global Justice and its work regarding Honduras. Then we're going to have a round table hosted by Camille with Tanya and Rasha Mubarak, who are going to talk about what's been going on, about the solidarity with Palestine. And then we're going to switch into Tanya, who's going to present that video about Haiti. So it's just going to be kind of rapid fire there. So sit back and enjoy. Thank you. Goodbye.
Hi, I'm guessing I'm on. Am I on?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to introduce you, Vicky. Vicky Cervantes, an incredibly important member of our board and the chair of the Honduras Solidarity Network. I'm just trying to wrap it and put in a lot at once there. But yeah, we're really happy to have you here, and this is so important to us. So sorry about that, and I'm going to turn it over.
No problem. And I'm actually a co-coordinator of the Honduras Solidarity Network, along with Karen Spring, a Canadian compañera. So first, I want to congratulate Alliance for Global Justice for the past 25 years of struggle and movement building, and to congratulate them for the next 25 years of building the movement and continuing to fight. My experience with Alliance for Global Justice began after 2009, when we woke up one morning and there had been a coup d'etat supported by the US, no big surprise there, in Honduras against a government that was moving to the left, was moving more and more into a Bolivarian way of thinking, both internally and externally, and that was the Mel Zelaya presidency in Honduras at that time. That led to almost 13 years of dictatorship, of a growing narco dictatorship. And I want to say that Alliance for Global Justice was one of several, but one of the key organizations to really jump in with both feet and help us to build the Honduras Solidarity Network, because at the time of the coup there were only a small handful of organizations in the US and Canada who knew anything about Honduras. And they were joined by organizations like Alliance for Global Justice that have been doing work in Latin America for a long time. Alliance for Global Justice was key in helping us to build a coalition of organizations, and it was a coalition, a messy coalition of collectives, of organizations with budget, of organizations with zero money, but everyone who wanted to build solidarity. Alliance for Global Justice gave us their time, their political arguments and discussion that really were helpful in building a coalition that continued to center opposition to US and to build the people's movements in the US and in Honduras. And I think that's maybe a key thing, because one of the cornerstones of all the work that Alliance for Global Justice does is that it's not all about organizational egos or individual egos. It's about movement building. And our experience in building the Honduras Solidarity Network was that Alliance for Global Justice was one of the organizations that always centered building the movement in the US, the Solidarity movement, and the movement in Honduras, which was also a broad coalition-based resistance movement in the streets by the thousands for 13 years. So this is an important thing. The other key thing, just to say again, is they always center opposition to US imperialism. in supporting all of the popular movements. So that, I think, is a thing that makes Alliance for Global Justice Alliance for Global Justice. That's a key aspect of how the organization functions and works. The other thing I want to mention is that the Alliance for Global Justice supported the work in Honduras and continues to support that work, which is continuing uh, with staff helping, donating time, uh, giving us administrative support, all of those really important things. They also became our fiscal sponsor. And in that way, I think we have to say that the Honduras Solidarity Network in North America has also been directly affected by the attacks on Alliance for Global Justice. We're a small organization. We're not a major fundraising organization, but we also depended on those credit card donations coming in through Alliance for Global Justice's fiscal sponsorship to give us some regular sustainable income for us to do our work, and so that we could support the people in Honduras as they fought the dictatorship, and now as they continue to fight US interference, which has not given up, but in fact is continuing to interfere. As a reform government, a new government was elected against the old dictatorship. So the attacks on Alliance for Global Justice are coming about precisely because Alliance for Global Justice fights for the movements and building the people's movements, because Alliance for Global Justice centers opposition to US imperialism, to its interference, to its policies of intervention in Central America and around the world, and because the fiscal sponsorship program of Alliance for Global Justice has been so important for organizations, small and large, to be able to focus on continuing their work. So congratulations for the past 25 years. Let's keep this going another 25 years. And Honduras Solidarity Network stands with the Alliance for Global Justice. Thank you.
Much, Vicky. James?
Yes.
Okay, we're having a little bit of tech trouble here. And so, and I believe we are not yet quite ready for the roundtable. Is that correct?
That is next on our schedule. We could interchange it with the Haiti video if you'd prefer.
Let's do that, and perhaps we can get Rasha on. So Haiti is a very critically important country, and the issues surrounding Haiti are critically important. And our very own Tanya has done a lot of work on that lately, and is going to talk about what's going on in Haiti and why it's important for people in the United States and throughout the world to be aware of what's happening.
As we know, Haiti is not talked about enough, or rarely, is even in the picture. And it's very important for us to consider Haiti and understand how Haiti is connected to all the other struggles in the world, including Palestine, and why we see such parallels between Haiti and Palestine. And so we did a video recently just to answer some very simple questions regarding Haiti that many people don't even realize or don't even know. So I'm if Elaine, if you could share that video, and then we could discuss it more afterward, the campaign we're doing around that and everything. Or should I continue? The
If while she's preparing the video, just maybe I want to add real quickly that 20 years ago, there's a U.S. sponsored coup against Haiti that just reversed the people's government of Jean Bertrand Aristide. And ever since then, Haiti has been paying the price, for having stood up and elected its own government that wasn't lockstep and barrel with the U.S. empire and so on. So I just want to say that a new invasion and occupation of Haiti is imminent. It is imminent. And I want to encourage people to go to the afgj.org, where we have a couple of actions you can take. One is against the funding requests for more military aid for Haiti, Palestine, Ukraine, and the other is an invasion or a petition that we are doing with the Black Alliance for Peace and World Beyond War. We're active in the Zone of Peace campaign, and please stay tuned because it's so important that we stand side by side with Haiti and with Palestine. This video explains the connections.
Open air prison, entrenched poverty with little opportunity, foreign domination, massive political arrests, inhuman prison conditions, refusal of occupiers to recognize elections, threats of new invasions. Are we talking about Palestine or Haiti here? Are the struggles of the Haitian people and the struggles of the Palestinian people connected?
Yeah, Tanya, thank you for the question. And like you mentioned, I'm the co-coordinator for the Haiti Americas team. And one of the critical things, for us is we focus on Haiti and we focus on the Americas and center that in a lot of our analysis, right? But obviously within that, we understand that the central contradiction here of all the work that BAP does, right? And whether it's in Haiti, whether it's in the continent of Africa, in the Americas, in solidarity with folks in Palestine, the central contradiction is imperialism, right? And imperialism, in its current form, perpetrated by the US, by NATO, and by their access of domination, right, throughout the world. And this idea of kind of full spectrum domination, that it is the imperialist way of seeing the world, that worldview, and the imperialist way of ordering the world. And anyone that steps out of that, anyone that tries to achieve self-determination for their peoples, anyone, particularly, Black and particularly African folks, particularly, Palestinians who have been fighting for their self-determination and sovereignty for years, are going to be repressed and oppressed, right? And so we see clearly that there are links between Haiti and Palestine. We clearly see in taking sort of the, as you mentioned, some of the material conditions and analyzing those in Haiti and in Palestine. They're different contexts, but you pointed out a lot of similarities, right? We can look at Haiti right now, which is about to face an intervention from Kenya that has been orchestrated by the US and many other countries, both in the region and globally, right, who are going to come into Haiti to intervene militarily, right, in what they've deemed, a crisis situation. But we've also seen that Haiti has been occupied, right, by the UN de facto or in law and in fully occupied since 2004. Previous to that, there were, coups that took out Aristide. There was dictatorship supported by the U.S. and there were previous U.S. occupations, right, military occupations that happened. Similar with the history of Palestine, right? You see that what is happening currently in Palestine and the Palestinian resistance that has broken out of the open air prison of Gaza was preceded by 75 years of occupation of their land, many interference in their own self-determinative processes that have led to where we are today, right? In Palestine, the folks are resisting, right, in many different ways, right? Folks have, as I said, broken out of that open air prison and are fighting for their right to self-determination. Which, by the way, the UN, is, I think we would maintain, and at BAP we maintain that the UN is used as a tool of white supremacy, but under UN law, Palestinians have a right to self-determination as well, right, as do Haitians. And so even in international law, that is the case, even while international law itself might be white supremacist and set up to support the kind of imperialist world order that we have right now. So coming back specifically to Haiti and Palestine, though, I think it's really critical to note that Haiti the Haitian people have had their wages suppressed by the US, by the Obama and Clinton administration, right, or the Clinton state Department during the Obama administration. Haitians have now had, as of a couple weeks ago, the border to the Dominican Republic shut off, and the Dominican Republic is refusing to send over not even food aid, refusing to sell food, right? And so I think it's really critical that we understand that that blockade of food is happening, that there's also possible blockades of energy and gas, that the gas taxes or the gas subsidies that used to support the Haitian people, and which almost every country in the world has some level of gas subsidies, right, were removed, increasing the prices of fuel. We see in Palestine as well. I believe earlier today, I do believe it was earlier today, that the last power plant in Gaza ran out of power, right? So Palestinians in Gaza are without power. That Israel has said that they will block all electricity, food, and water to Gaza, right? To basically commit a slow genocide of the people of Gaza. And so we see that there's similarities, right? It may not work in exactly the same way, but there are many, many similarities here between Haiti and between Palestine. And we could draw similarities if we have more time with certain communities in the US, with other communities throughout the world. And so what this comes back to is that while the context may be different, while people may be going through different struggles, and there may be different specific areas that they are fighting within, right, or things that they are fighting for, all folks from Haiti to Palestine are struggling, are rising up for their self-determination. And what that looks like specifically needs to be determined by the people of Palestine, by the people of Haiti, right? And not coerced, and without interference from the US, without interference from NATO, without interference from Israel, the core group in Haiti. And so it's really critical that we not sort of judge what that self-determination looks like in those different countries, right? Or say from a Western perspective, a Western chauvinist perspective, that we need to determine, that the US needs to determine what Haiti's political system or social system, or the Palestinians' political or social system looks like. What we need to do is affirm their right to self-determination. And so at the Black Alliance for Peace, we believe that it's really critical that we link those struggles. And that's what we have consistently tried to do, is always link these struggles and link that central contradiction of imperialism, because that is the root of the challenge, whether it's imperialism in Haiti and colonialism and neocolonialism and the way that shows up, or Zionism and colonialism in Palestine. That is a central contradiction. And we've just released a statement as well that calls out solidarity with the people of Palestine and with the Palestinian resistance fighting for their self-determination, and also explicitly links that to the fight in Haiti, that we are expecting as well to escalate when intervention, if and when intervention comes. So as I said before, for self-determination.
Yeah, us at the Alliance for Global Justice agree, you know, the parallels between Haiti and Palestine are rooted in imperialism, and as people living in the belly of the beast, you know, we need to demand that the US, you know, takes their hands off Haiti, hands off Palestine, no intervention, no occupation. And yeah, we support, you know, self-determination. So yeah, thank you so much. And where can people get more information about, you know, the work you're doing? And yeah.
Yeah, so you can always go to blackallianceforpeace.com. For Haiti and specifically, and some of the work in the Americas, you can go to blackallianceforpeace.com/zone of peace. And that will kind of share that campaign. You can also look for statements from some of our member organizations, like Molagaf in Haiti, on Palestine specifically, Al-Auda. You can look at Samadoun, as well as Within Our Lifetime, who are all members of the Black Alliance for Peace Solidarity Network, and many others.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And again, I'm Tanya from the Alliance for Global Justice, and this is Austin from Black Alliance for Peace, and thank you so much.
When we talk about AFGJ, the first word in our name is alliance. And this work that we're doing with Black Alliance for Peace is a great example of how that solidarity works. That these issues, we recognize that these issues are all very intersectional. And our ability to work with other people and to support other people where that support is needed is really integral to the processes of liberation, to the work of liberation. So that's another example of what is harmed, what is damaged when AFGJ is deplatformed, when AFGJ is basically kneecapped, so that we can't raise the money, so that we cannot engage our supporters, that's you folks, in the work that we're doing. And it actually has I don't want to say trickle down, that has other connotations, but it has a negative effect on all of the organizations that we are in solidarity with, because we are all under attack, because we all face similar threats. So I'd like to turn the conversation to that repression exactly. And I'd like Tanya again to talk with me and tell us about some of the other forms of repression around the issues of specifically the plight of the Palestinian people, the genocide that's going on in Gaza, and what that means to other organizations who are working for peace, who are working against genocide, who are working for dignity, democracy, and human rights throughout the world, particularly in Palestine. So let's talk a little bit about repression, Tanya. What is that looking like at the moment?
Can I jump in there? Can I jump in there just briefly too? Because after she answers, I had some questions I'd like to ask you, Camille, and also Tanya.
Okay,
Okay. No, let's do that, and then I'll go ahead and ask you some things.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, just going back to that video, I think that's why it's so important for organizations like us to continue doing that work, and how crucial international solidarity is, because we are able to share information and struggle whether while others, are trying to share misinformation about us, and in order to demonize us, in order to repress the work that we're doing. And that's the case, in a larger context with Palestine and Haiti, right? The information we receive of those countries are very limited, first of all, but also very misinformed, and obviously kind of geared toward imperialist and colonialist interests. And Palestine, and Haiti are both demonized with words like, gangs and terrorists, right? They're all just gangs and terrorists, and that has also been extended to people who are supporting Palestine right now, and not just organizers, or people who you would say are militants, but just regular people who just don't want a genocide to take place. And that includes students. A lot of students here in particular, where I'm at in Tucson, Arizona, have been repressed by their own school for having these views in support of Palestine. In fact, a few now, like in October, when after October 7, when this brutal massacre of Palestinians started happening, Students for Justice in Palestine at the University of Arizona decided to hold a rally, in solidarity with Palestine. And what did our president do? President Robbins, he made a statement essentially calling these students terrorists, and saying that they were siding with terrorists, and that the university unequivocally supports Israel. And so, that left a lot of students, obviously in fear, because, this president essentially put a target on their backs by demonizing them and calling these things and making these false accusations of them. And so, that kind of deterred the students at first, and they actually canceled their rally because of this fear. But the community came out and actually has been coming out for the students, in support of the students and the work they're doing. And so, knowing that, this is a time that we shouldn't be silenced, when they're like trying their best to silence us, is when we have to stand up the most. And especially for the younger people that are coming in, the students, like I said, also teachers, professors who are, advocating for Palestine, or at least, doing the simplest thing of, holding teach-ins about Palestine are getting reprimanded and getting disciplinary disciplinary actions against them before doing these things, whether it's like in the high school level, because there's actually teachers here in Tucson who've been holding teach-ins on the high school level. They've been getting reprimanded, but also professors at the university doing simple, teach-ins on the history of Palestine. So again, that's kind of an attack on education, I don't see it as anything else, especially as Arizona is, one, consistently like last in, education, just funding and things like that, like your system, and teachers are paid horrible. On top of that, they're not able to, express freedom of speech. And so, yeah, again, though, because of this, it's actually bringing more people together and making us stronger, I think. And more students, again, whether it be high school students or, university level students are, getting on board the Palestinian struggle and are getting into organizing and, want to know what they could do, are, learning about Palestine and, and consequently learning about, other, forms of imperialism. Again, that's why international solidarity is so great, because when we're informed of one struggle and understand one struggle, we start making connections between other struggles. And that's what's happening, actually. So, as much as they're trying to silence us, it's actually making us stronger, I think. And again, at the University of Arizona specifically, where, I'm connected with through my local organizing, there's just been an activation of student organizing when, before it was sort of non-existent. So yeah, that's been the case. But again, there's still a lot of repression, and, as they've been attacking us, they've essentially attacked anybody who's, for liberation of Palestine and against genocide, whether it be leftists, whether it be, liberals, it's sort of just anybody who says from the river to the sea, right? So yeah,
Tanya,
that's a
if I
little.
can jump in there,
Yeah.
I just notice a lot of what you're talking about has some direct parallels, perhaps, to things, the kind of repression that we used to see like in the 50s and 60s. And, Camille was right in the thick of some of the fight back going on in the 60s. And it's interesting. The DNC this year is in Chicago. That's kind of ominous.
Mhm.
But I was wondering, Camille, what you're hearing Tanya say and the repression that we're seeing today, does it remind you of anything?
Boy, does it ever remind me of that. 1968, the Democratic National Convention was held in Chicago, and the at that time fully militarized Chicago Police Department came out literally swinging against students who were gathered in the park in Grant Park outside of the convention in opposition to the war in Vietnam. It's it's the same process, just kind of brought forward into the future. So people were arrested and faced federal charges, equivalent to charges of terrorism. They were charges of inciting to riot and doing other things like that where they faced lifetimes in jail. People were physically hurt. I was sitting in the office of a Chicago organization that worked for Black liberation, worked for civil rights, when a curfew was called in the city and a tank rolled down the street and actually pushed its muzzle through the plate glass window. And I'm going to tell you, you ain't lived until you've looked down the barrel of a 50 millimeter cannon that's 10 or 12 feet from your nose. So we have been facing repression when we work for liberation for a long, long time. We ought to recognize it when we see it coming and stand against it. Because if people on campuses and people on the cities and people at bus stops during the Vietnam War had not been able to get together and talk and raise our voices in protest, we'd probably still be fighting the war in Vietnam now. If we lose the right, and you lose your rights when you don't stand up for them, by the way, when you don't directly counter attempts to silence you. You're giving away your voice. I also want to make clear that this is not something that's just going on at the University of Arizona in Tucson. This is going on everywhere from Harvard and Yale and Penn to the university, the California university systems, to the University of Michigan, to to Emory and Spelman colleges in Atlanta. I'm talking people that I know, people that I'm very familiar with, who have attempted to just do things like teach-ins, who are having peaceful demonstrations against genocide. 19,000 and more people dead, an unknown number dead underneath the rubble. The vast majority of them citizens. Of course, Israel considers any male between the ages of about 12 and 70 to be a combatant. And so you can't even count the number of those people who've been slaughtered as combatants. They've just been going about their business trying to live. There is a very real attempt to wipe Palestinians off the face of the earth. And Israel
Camille,
acts with impunity. Yes, sir.
no, I'm sorry. I didn't. I thought you were. I didn't mean to interrupt. Anyway, but I do have a question for both you and Tanya, or a couple questions. But they're interrelated because you brought up something I wanted to ask Tanya. You're talking about all the things that are happening on all these campuses, and Tanya, as an organizer in Tucson, is what you're seeing, does it reflect what's going on in the country? And also not just the repression, but the fight back. We had 26 people arrested blocking entrances to Raytheon. That sort of thing hasn't happened in Tucson quite some time. So is this something that's happening all over the country? And Camille, with all this escalation of attacks on our basic rights, our freedom to organize, freedom to speech, is there any relevance to anything such as the Lucy Parsons Human Rights School?
There's a heck of a lot of relevance if I can just put in a shameless plug. So, AFGJ founded and operates the Lucy Parsons Popular Human Rights School to train activists, to train human rights observers. And we also have a database that collects information on human rights offenses of any kind throughout the world. And that database's information will be available to anybody doing organizing or academic work or for any other purposes, because it's important to share that knowledge. So the Human Rights School, which is virtual, it is online and it's universal, and we have translators available in Spanish, so it's multilingual. And our next series will start in mid-January. If you are interested at all in being a part of the Human Rights School, or in supporting the work of the Human Rights School, or having something to say about human rights in your community or elsewhere, drop us an email at afgj.org/HRS. That stands for Human Rights School. Or just send it to the basic AFGJ info@afgj.org email address. And let us know. We would like very much to have you be a part of this discussion of these trainings. At the end of the training, by the way, you become a certified human rights observer with an ID card and a vest to prove it, which is very important because, again, if we don't stand up for our rights, we give them away.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's just another way of building international solidarity. If you're looking to something, how does that look like tangibly? Like joining the Lucy Parsons Popular Human Rights School is just like a perfect way to do that because, like Camille mentioned, it's an international school, so you would be with people who from other countries as well, and we're able to learn from each other's struggles. And I think also specifically the U.S. has a lot to learn from the struggles, is like particularly in Latin America. A lot of our teachers from the HRS school are from Latin America, from Colombia, Mexico, who have faced their own levels of repression on the streets or in their institutions at work and school. And so it's a great way for us to learn that and to be able to resist and protect that. Because like James said, here in Tucson, more people are standing up for Palestine, and are taking those, frankly, needing to do what needs to be done to free Palestine, and that means ending the arms that are going to Palestine. I mean, the U.S. Most of the weapons that Israel gets comes from the U.S. And in Tucson, Arizona, Raytheon's, which is one of the largest, arms weapons manufacturing company in the world, is headquartered here. And so organizers and demonstrators have been, shutting it down for Palestine, and that means targeting Raytheon, as well as a subsidiary of Elbit Systems that's here, Universal Avionics. They make planes and stuff. Which I assume carry the bombs that kill Palestinians. And so those are two other, and as well as many other companies that are, here in Southern Arizona to fund the war economy. So a lot of people have been coming down here, and yeah, some 26 or so people were arrested at Raytheon, including a reporter. But luckily they were let go, and there is a bail fund that's been placed for situations like this. But again, the more information we have to be able to report on, these violations that are clearly happening, within the U.S., against our rights, the better it is for us to win the struggle. So yeah.
This isn't just about our rights either. It's about our absolute survival. We don't have universal universal health care in the United States. And, the people who oppose that say, well, we can't afford it. But we can afford to send literally billions of dollars worth of aid, military aid, to Israel, which it in turn uses to institute an apartheid state to oppress Palestinians, and now to commit an absolute act of genocide, multiple acts of genocide against the Palestinian people. I live in a state where 1 out of 4 children is food insecure. 1 out of 4 children in this agricultural state goes hungry at least part of the time. We don't have money to feed children, to support elders, to fix our roads and bridges and our infrastructure, to avoid despoiling the planet and ruining it, to care for the health and well-being of our citizens. But we got money for warfare across the ocean to commit genocide. What's wrong with this picture?
Well, Camille, I'll tell you what, man, I feel like somebody interrupting a revivalist with something actually to say. I mean, you're a powerful speaker, and I don't want to cut you off. Of course, we have this scheduled that we this
do.
arbitrary, and we want to switch now. Tanya and William just came back from Bolivia, and they're just going to take a few minutes, about 7 minutes, to just talk a little bit about Bolivia, its importance, about AFGJ's role in Bolivia. I'm going to get off, but if you got some questions, Camille, or something to add, you've been to Bolivia too, haven't you? Oh, Bamboshi has been. Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway,
so yeah, me and William were able we went to Bolivia. It was I got the opportunity to go there for the first time. William has been there several times, and so yeah, it was a
I'm sorry, I
great
couldn't hear
honor.
you.
Yeah.
Can you
You
hear me?
can't hear me? Yeah. Yeah, we could hear you. But you can't hear me? It doesn't seem like he could hear us. But yeah, we were just there a few weeks back, also with our coworker Natalia, and so it was really great experience. Really challenging in some senses, but that's how delegations work. It's kind of going with the changes and going full in with the experience of Bolivia. So it was really great to see that and practice international solidarity. So I don't think William could hear us still, but yeah, a few places that we went to when we were there was Cochabamba and La Paz were obviously some big cities that we went to, but we also went to some smaller rural communities, which was a really great experience because a lot of people don't get to, go to these places as is. And so that's something that's unique to AFGJ, that through our delegations, we're able to, go in deep and interact, literally with the grassroots of these communities, of these countries, and really see how they're transforming and how they're organizing their country. So yeah, it was a really great experience in that sense, and particularly with Bolivia, learning about their plurinational state, which a lot of people probably don't know about that, or maybe you do, but Bolivia declares itself a plurinational state, meaning it consists of a lot of different nationalities and different indigenous groups, and it's a diverse, and they all have autonomy and rights as a collective, which is important. We here in the U.S. specifically, there's such an importance in individual rights and your rights as an individual, but the plurinational state of Bolivia, in their constitution, really takes into importance the rights of collectives, of collectives of groups. And so it was really great to actually see what that looks like in practice, and how indigenous communities specifically are empowering themselves, against imperialism and colonialism and all those white supremacy that tries to take over
I'm right now in La
over
Paz,
Bolivia.
in
Yeah,
Bolivia.
great. Can you hear us? No,
And
go ahead.
I really cannot hear anything, but let me see. Okay, thanks. I'm right now in La Paz, in Bolivia, and I just came here with several members of the Alliance for Global Justice to basically uh, lead a delegation of USA people from United States, from all over United States, and to see very close the situation here on the ground. I remember that years ago I came to to Bolivia with Chuck Cosman. He was extremely interested in Bolivia. He always was talking about things to do in Bolivia and solidarity that we have, so we can provide to Bolivia and to people in struggle here. Also, he was talking to another person that was very close in those days with to Chuck Cosman, and also was living here in Bolivia. That was Tanya Kenners. I don't remember her last name. She lives in Minneapolis now. She was working for at that moment for Fresh Food, but it was a very interesting relation that we have with her, and she was providing a lot of information to Chuck and to um, about Bolivia. One of the issues that we always were talking to him is about the what United States was doing here in Bolivia, especially in El Chapare. El Chapare is the area where the cocaleros, those farmers that grow coca leaf, uh, live. And it's the area where Evo Morales came to be known as a national leader in Bolivia and also internationally. And in the Chapare, the DAA have like a checkpoint, a United States agency of drug have a checkpoint in that area that was fight by the indigenous people there and was fight by Evo Morales and all the farmers and cocaleros of that area. We have to to mention that one of the issues that we were always talking to Chuck, it was the need to get out those people from United States that were basically helping the narco traffickers to get the coca leaf out of the chapare. And I remember that there was a huge campaign in those days, not only in Bolivia but also in United States. Again, the the narco trafficker agency of United States in their role in the Chapare, where the cocaleros are working and where Evo came as a leader. I have to mention also that that is it was a little, was a bunch of stuff happening at the same time. One of the stuff that was happening was the war of the water war that was happening at the same time, and also the war of the gas. And one president that is very well unhappily known, very well known, and also someone that a lot of people repudiate here is Goni. Goni was the president of Bolivia for several years, and he was basically someone that didn't speak Spanish, and in one of those crises, he organized the police department and the National Guard and killed a big number of Poncho Rojos in in Titicaca Lake. So at that moment, there was another leader that was Felipe Quispe. And Felipe Quispe, for that killing in the entire region of Titicaca Lake, organized a blockade to La Paz, to the city of La Paz. And several months later, the president of Bolivia called Felipe Quispe and asked him for a meeting in La Paz. And Felipe Quispe just said, no, you have to come here. You have to come to Lago Titicaca. If you want to talk to us, you have to come to Lago Titicaca, and you have to meet with us in La Isla del Sol. There is a small island in the Titicaca Lake called La Isla del Sol. So, so basically, the president Goni, that was at the time called El Gringo, had to go to visit Felipe Quispe in La Isla del Sol. And when he was there, there is a very well-known comment that Felipe Quispe made to Goni, the Gringo president. He said there was a fountain of water in the island, and he said, "Why you don't drink some water to see? I don't expect too much from you, but to see if you at least learn some Spanish and can talk to us." So that was a very interesting comment from Felipe Quispe, a very interesting figure, a contemporary figure of Bolivia. So I have to say that Chuck was always very enthusiastic and was always very, trying to learn about the history of this country, especially the struggle of the indigenous community here. We need to know that there are around more than 12 million Aymaras. They speak their language in this continent, and around 9 million Quechuas. So they speak Quechua. So it's a lot of people that they have their own languages here. So the struggle in Bolivia is extremely important because Bolivia is in the center of the continent. It's next to Brazil, it's to Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay. So it's very connected to several other countries in this area. But also, Bolivia have a lot of natural resources. Bolivia had the biggest lithium reserve, but they still don't know how much lithium they have. They still don't have been able to do all the studies to determine how much lithium they have, and they believe that they have a big, large uh, deposit of lithium in Bolivia. So that
Oh,
has to be determined sometime soon. But they
yeah.
have been able to work and to do, and some, I would say, sovereign work with the lithium. They are trying to control their own resources. And something that is extremely important to mention, that Bolivia was a country that no one was mentioned before Evo Morales. Before the el proceso de cambio,
sorry, I'm gonna cut William off. Although what he's saying is very important, Bolivia isn't talked enough. But we need to move on. But again, that's why we need to follow our work and join our delegation, so you could learn more about what's going on in Bolivia, and like how there's continue to resist as the U.S. tries to take their resources, but at the same time they're running out of resources because of climate change. So yeah, we're gonna move on now to Camille, who has a few things to say.
I do indeed. I want to talk about prison imperialism very briefly. When we think about the things that are a part of imperialism, which is the successor to colonialism, we tend not to think about prisons. But the fact of the matter is, the United States has taken great pains to export its peculiar means of oppression and forms of oppression to other nations, and then often in turn to turn around and to bring and to field test ideas for control. For instance, it's important to note that the knee on the neck of George Foreman in Minneapolis in 2020 was a maneuver that was trained, that the Minneapolis police were trained on by representatives of the Israeli Defense Force. So it's a two-way street. We also have what was formerly known as the School of the Americas, now called WINSEC, in which people from nations that are undergoing liberation movements, nations that the United States wants to make certain to keep under its thumb, under its control, are brought to Georgia in the United States and taught how to subdue those liberation movements, taught how to commit murder and disappearances, taught how to literally put their knees on the necks of people whose only desire is freedom, is liberation, is democracy. So also, the export of the U.S. mass incarceration model. 1 in every 100 people in the United States is behind bars. That is a number that is unknown in the civilized world. One of the things that AFGJ does is work against prison imperialism in all its forms. We have a political prisoner list, which is very important, and we do a lot of advocacy for political prisoners. And one of the political prisoners that we're supporting is the Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab, who was illegally arrested and extradited for the crime of trying to bring food into Venezuela. That was a
Camille,
violation.
may I
Yes, sir.
interrupt just a minute? Yeah, I just want to point out that we're actually going to be playing a very moving video from his wife and family later in the broadcast.
We are.
But right at this moment, we want to take a moment to a musical interlude. One is something that William sent to us. It's a short, but about 46 seconds of a Afro-Venezuelan troupe. I'm trying to find their names again. Let me see. But then the other one after that I'm particularly, well, it says there on the thing, but particularly looking forward to is a song by Tanya that features Hugo Chavez. And of course, Venezuela solidarity has been such an important part of Alliance for Global Justice history. So at this moment, what I would like to do is during this interlude, again, we're trying to be informative and we're trying to have fun. But when it comes down to the kind of resistance that we need right now to not be silenced, one thing we need are your contributions. These aren't just your normal year-end contributions. These contributions are actually real solidarity. They're actually helping us keep going, but also there is an attack against Palestine solidarity movements around the country and around the world. We've been talking about this. And this is part of hybrid warfare that turns people like you and me and grassroots and organizations into part of the war strategies. We are targets of war. We are part of the war strategies. They're trying to shut us up because Israel wants international impunity, but it's just going to go from there. If we don't fight back now, it's going to touch us in all our different struggles, all of them. So it's really important that you write that check. If you can, send it to the address that's on there on the screen, or make a pledge and find out about other ways to donate by sending an email to afgj@afgj.org. So enjoy these musical offerings now as we take a little musical interlude, and grab yourself a soda or beer or a cup of tea and your checkbook, or send us an email. Thanks a lot.
Ya están sonando, vengan a ver los tipitrás que toca Belén. Ya están sonando, vengan a ver los tipitrás que toca Belén. Ya están sonando, vengan a ver los tipitrás que toca Belén. Belén María, un digno ejemplo de los cultores de mi Barlovento. Belén María, un digno ejemplo de los cultores de mi Barlovento. Vengan a ver los tipitrás que toca Belén. Ya están sonando, vengan a ver los tipitrás que toca Belén. Suenan sabroso con emoción, Belén Palacio es una institución. Suena sabroso con emoción, Belén Palacio es una institución. Ya están sonando, vengan a ver los tipitrás que toca Belén. Ya están sonando, vengan a ver los tipitrás que toca Belén. Belén María lo está sonando, en Barlovento sigue replicando. Belén María lo está sonando, en Barlovento sigue replicando.
Bueno, nosotros comenzamos desde este momento a evaluar las relaciones diplomáticas con el gobierno de los Estados Unidos. Acabo de hablar con el canciller y para que Bolivia sepa que no está sola, a partir ¿qué hora es? Son las 7:15. Tiene 72 horas. A partir de este momento, el embajador yanqui en Caracas para salir de Venezuela.
Nacimos entre guerras, rodas y fronteras, una pandemia global y 1 millón de promesas rotas por un poder imperial que explota a los que le dan de comer a su boca. ¿Por qué nos provocan si fueron ellos los que soltaron la bomba, fundaron los contras y compran la coca de Colombia? No sean hipócritas, el pueblo está dispuesto a hacer lo que sea para empujar la casa obrera. Cuántas rosas cortes nunca podrás parar la llegada de la primavera. Venimos de las sierras, costas y fronteras para reparar las venas de Latinoamérica y cosechar la tierra para la nueva era. Y conozco mi lugar viviendo dentro del imperio infernal. No me va tan mal que los de su global, pero sé que en realidad se requiere solidaridad. Pasaba la humanidad, nada más, no nos falta nada más. Entonces ponte las pilas y despierta. Vivimos en la panza de la bestia. Que cuesta enfrentarte a la verdad, ponerte a trabajar para que todos los niños puedan jugar en paz. En la tierra nos recordarán como Tupac y Simón Bolívar. Solo déjate llevar por la casa universal. Lo que no termines tú, alguien más continuará. y lo vuelvo a repetir. El pueblo está dispuesto a hacer lo que sea para empujar la casa obrera. Cuántas rosas cortes nunca podrás parar la llegada de la primavera. Venimos de las sierras, costas y fronteras para reparar las venas de Latinoamérica, cosechar la tierra para la nueva era. A solas, no tenemos mucho, pero juntos es como rompemos los muros. Cantarán que sí se pudo en el futuro. Revolución en nuestro tiempo, no lo dudo. No lo dudo, y como dice nuestro compañero Hugo, presente, presente, presente hasta el triunfo.
Pase lo que pase y cuéntenos lo que nos cuente. Ya basta, ya basta de tanta mierda de ustedes, yanquis. Ya basta, ya basta. Ojalá, como dicen nuestros hermanos los árabes, ojalá, inshallah, salam aleikum. Ojalá que algún día el pueblo de los Estados Unidos tenga un gobierno con el que se pueda conversar. Ojalá algún día pronto, más pronto que tarde, ese país tenga un gobierno que respete a los pueblos y los gobiernos de América Latina. No le pedimos más nada, que nos respeten, porque nosotros merecemos respeto.
Hey there, welcome back. Wow, what a talent we have in Tanya. She can write, she can talk, she can organize, and she can produce some pretty cool music there. Thanks, Tanya.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, I know you do music too, so yeah, it's great that we be
Yeah, I do,
doing that too.
like 3 chords and a few verses on an old
Yeah,
Git box.
it's important we
Thank
use,
you.
all forms of media, art, and just, journalism and, social media, because there is a hybrid war against us as well. And, but also art is so important in moving the masses and, keeping that revolutionary optimism going and everything. Yeah.
Well, one thing I'll say about Tanya is that I have had the pleasure of her company 2 different times in Colombia. And if you followed AFGJ, you know our solidarity with Colombia is a very big part of what we do. And we have earned trust of people. We can go places where many people cannot go. Uh, we're not the only ones. There's others, but there's a few of us, and it meant that we were like the ones. It was AFGJ that was invited to send a delegation to the founding of the Marcha Patriotica. We were invited to Cuba to meet with the peace negotiators. We have a history, and I'm not going to get into it right now, but what I am just going to briefly talk about uh, is one thing I was really proud of with us was our founding, first of all, our support, not our founding, but our support, our involvement with the Centro Pacifico Pacific Human Rights Center in Cali, which serves the area, one of the areas most affected by political violence. It's a way station for people trying to get away from threats, and it's an organizing center. And it was open during the midst of the pandemic. And then in 2021, with the national strike, the Paro Nacional, that actually made it into mainstream news up here, but there was a lot of repression. People lost their lives. The weapons of repression were paid for with our taxes, with our public funds, the US support for that. And these are just a couple videos real quick that talk about that strike, that talk about the Centro Pacifico, and give some idea of the work that AFGJ is a part of. So Unless either of y'all have anything to say, we can go ahead and cut to both the videos. Oh.
Do we have video?
Yeah. Camille, did you have something to say?
Nope.
Estamos, yo soy James Patrick Jordan, James Patrick Jordan. Este es mi amigo Julián Mejía. Él es con Red Beak. Y algunos de ustedes conocen a él si ha visitado Cali conmigo, porque es usualmente nuestro conductor, amigo conductor y socio en crímenes. Ok. Quiero introducirles al barrio donde está el nuevo Centro Pacífico, el Centro de Derechos Humanos del Pacífico, acá en Cali, en uno de los lugares donde hay mucha violencia política, mucha represión, y su historia es muy, muy importante acá, apoyando los derechos humanos. Pero hemos mudado, se han mudado acá a esta vecindad y en que estamos preparando para un concierto, recaudar fondos para el centro y unos proyectos asociados con esto. Quiero enviar unos videos para introducirte al centro y su trabajo. Ok, aquí es vamos a caminar juntos. ¿Qué es este lugar, Julián?
Se llama la Loma de la Resistencia. Es un lugar muy central donde hay mucho turista.
Queremos viajar por allá. Vamos a desviar un poquito para mostrarte el corazón de la loma. Ok, continúa.
Pues en este punto, para el paro nacional fue uno de los puntos más ágiles porque hubo mucha confrontación con la ley, inclusive acá atentaron con la vida de un periodista en ese tiempo del Canal 1. ¿Puedes poner acá? Acá era una biblioteca que la habían puesto pues para la comunidad. Ahorita ya lo volvió a tomar la policía. Esta es una plaza acá donde se reúnen, donde hay eventos culturales entre semanas, sábado y domingo. Se reúne acá la comunidad y hacen eventos donde pues participan todos. Esto es una zona pues muy conocida acá en Cali. Su nombre es la Loma de la Cruz. Luego del paro nacional recibió el nombre de la Loma de la Resistencia. Y pues nada, acá en este lugar también uno de los chicos que murió en el paro, se llama Cristian Sánchez, era de acá. Pues, después de eso se creó una huerta comunitaria a nombre de él y la biblioteca comunitaria también, que les acabo de mostrar, pero pues que eso ya con el tiempo lo volvió a tomar la ley. Eso fue pues acá una zona de confrontación también. Allá en la parte de allá donde está la carretera llegaba el SMAT, heridos por todas partes, tiraban bombas para esa parte de acá. Lo bueno fue que la comunidad también pues vio eso y ayudó bastante. Pero pues, desafortunadamente un muchacho de acá de la zona, vuelvo y le repito el nombre, Cristian Sánchez, fue el que murió. Él murió por allá en otra parte, en otro punto de resistencia que se llamaba el Paso del Comercio. Pero pues la gente acá lo quiere mucho, o lo quiso mucho por su gran labor con la comunidad y porque también le gustaba montar mucha bicicleta.
Sí, muéstralo. Aquí está, este es el centro. Vamos a mover un poquito más cercana, donde puede ver la bandera que tiene en el piso arriba, la bandera.
Allá al frente, donde está la bandera de Palestina, queda el Centro de Derechos del Pacífico. Es el nuevo punto. Yo creería que ese es el punto más central de todas las sedes que han tenido. Y pues bueno, acá estamos dando la lucha, ayudándonos y colaborándonos mundialmente. Muchas gracias pues por su apoyo y por estar pendiente. Los muchachos que me conocen saben que por acá bienvenidos y ahí estamos. Por acá muchas gracias por todo.
Ok, él y yo vamos a ir para compartir una bola. Nos hablaremos luego. Chao.
Thank you very much for that. Our work in Colombia is really central to what AFGJ does. It's central to our mission. It's central to our action. And it is very important to you. Solidarity isn't just something that's nice to have. Solidarity is the thing that makes it possible to guarantee the rights, the human rights, the fundamental human rights of people in other parts of the world, as well as in this country. Because one thing's for sure, if they're not free, we are not free. So we have another video, an interview with David. James, would you like to talk about that very briefly?
Again, we're here with David Escobar, he's an independent journalist here in Cali, definitely somebody who gets into the mix. He gets out there, he's out there on the front lines documenting his things, and we're going to be hopefully making available on our YouTube channel and on various presentations some of the shorts and that he did while he was out there in the streets during the national strike and more. He's been doing stuff. He was doing stuff before the national strike and is still at it. Many of you probably saw a film he worked on with others called Bajo Fuego that talks about some of the struggles nearby in the north of Cauca with some of the rural areas. But let's talk about here. Let's talk about Cali. Let's talk again about the national strike. The Alliance for Global Justice, we raised a few $1,000s to get supplies to street medics during the national strike. Can you tell us what was it like out on the streets? Were people being injured? What was going on? And what was the process like for you to, we would send you the money. You guys would go out and buy the supplies. You would, they would be kept at the Centro Pacifico and then get them out. Would people come pick the supplies out? Would you go out to the different places to deliver them? How necessary? Was this an important thing?
Well, James, not only people were being injured, we have recordings of the medical brigades that were being shot during the attention of the people that was injured. There was an order given to the paramilitaries to shoot to death to any medical nurse that were helping people in the street. As we received the help from Alliance for Global Justice, we got the medical aid supplies and put them to the different points where people were gathering and literally fighting for their lives. But after we take this to these doctors, to these people, the police anti-riot squad was there shooting them or destroying things. So it was kind of more complicated than just taking it there. It was also taking it there and moving to another point because they had to move or they lost their supplies. Or I can tell you one day, because in Siloé there was a massacre, and we were trying to get there to film, to take some photographs and to take some medical aid, but the police were shooting to death to anyone who was trying to get there. So I went to different points. I had my bulletproof vest and helmet, but also I received the shots of the police in my vest. So it was very difficult. There was more than 200 journalists that were attacked during this strike by mainly by the police forces and other unknown forces, which we know who they are. Because under that mask there were also police members, and the the difficult of the situation. For example, I filmed some families which are now exiled because they lost their sons or their people that were just gathering with candles, um, making an event of memory for other people that were just killed the day before, and just for gathering in the streets with candles, they were shot to death. So day after day, there was a lot of people injured, there was a lot of missing people, there was a lot of dead people, and you could hear it from here. We are just one block from one of the more important points of the strike. And you could hear here there were these white cards with black glasses, windshields, like windshields,
Right. The armored vehicle.
yeah, that were just moving and in high speed and shooting to the people that was gathering there. So all the help that we received, and I'm not gonna get tired of telling you this, was critically necessary and very important in order to save lives.
I got a question about that now. You talk about these armored vehicles. We saw these attack helicopters, heavily armed police, these helicopters that were harassing and, firing against people in the streets at times. The armored attack vehicles, all of this. Does Colombia manufacture helicopters and attack vehicles? Where do these things come from?
No, not the helicopters, not the weapons that the anti-riot squad uses to mutilate, to destroy the eyes of the demonstrators. There were kind of hundred of people that lost their eyes with these weapons that are manufactured by the United States, as we saw in the
Wait, you're saying that they're manufactured in the United States?
Yeah.
The helicopters? The attack vehicles?
We are manufacturing helicopters here. So the weapons that are used are also bought from other countries. And I took some pictures, I think I sent it to you, of the weapons that were used, the cans that were shot to the eyes of the demonstrators were manufactured in the United States. So if we can say that at least the supply of these weapons had the consequence that people were shot or that died because of the impact in their heads. Well, I would say yeah.
Yeah, I actually, in previous strike in 2019, I saw the attack. I didn't see them shoot Dylan Cruz, but he was like a young man who was like shot point blank by the riot police, by the ESMAD riot police, who were created as an initiative of the United States. Yeah. And it was terrible what I saw. I was in my hotel at that time. I'd been coming back from some demonstrations, and I had gone up to my hotel room to balcony, to rest a little. And I was sitting on the balcony, and I saw some people demonstrating pretty peacefully, demonstrating in the streets. I had just walked from this area. I was like 2 blocks away from where he was killed, or a block away from where he was killed. And there was nothing, no violence on the parts of demonstrators going on whatsoever. And then all of a sudden I saw all these cops on motorcycles showing up, one cop driving, the other one with the non-lethal instruments, they say, and all of a sudden they just flooded the streets. They started getting off and they started attacking, and the tear gas was so bad that I, on the 6th floor balcony, had to go in. It was so thick. And it was that attack when they shot the student, Dylan Cruz, point blank for no reason. He died a few days later. So that's one of the reasons, like, we were trying to raise money for the medical supplies, because we know it's our taxes that help pay for the repression, and this is done in our names. So this is part of what we try to do at the Alliance for Global Justice, is to undo some of the damage.
All right. To the people in our audience, I want to thank you for hanging with us as long as you have. We're going to go a few minutes over, and I sincerely hope that you will stick with us long enough to hear from Camilla Fabri, the wife of Alex Saab, the diplomat being illegally held the cruel and heinous U.S. embargo. Let's roll that video very quickly, people. By the way, the U.S. has a long history of kidnapping and imprisoning people unjustly, illegitimately, even according to the laws of this nation, when those people oppose empire. Here we go.
Alex è il motor della famiglia, è il centro. Es el don más grande que Alex tiene, el don de ser un buen papá. Los recuerdos me duelen. Lo queremos de vuelta a casa. Para nosotros como familia el tiempo se ha paralizado a este 12 de junio del 2020 cuando Alex fue secuestrado. Mientras que el mundo sigue adelante, siguen creciendo los niños, siguen creciendo, cumpliendo años, siguen pasando la Navidad, las festividades, sigue la gente desarrollando su proyecto, sigue realizando sus sueños. Nosotros nos quedamos a este 12 de junio esperando que toda esta pesadilla se acabe, que Alex se pueda volver a casa para nosotros también poder empezar con él a vivir. Tenemos tantos proyectos, muchos que quedaron en el aire. Alex se lo arriesgó todo, cruzó todo el mundo para ayudar a todo el pueblo venezolano. Y ellos lo han dicho muy claro, los estadounidenses, lo mostraron, el gobierno de los Estados Unidos lo mostraron como un trofeo una vez que llega a Estados Unidos. Lo vistieron de naranja y lo pusieron en todos los videos, la foto, para decirnos al mundo, quien quiere ayudar a Venezuela, esto es lo que le va a pasar. Es difícil mantenerle a la niña, también mantener este recuerdo firme de su papá. Porque ya pasaron 3 años y medio, Mariam tenía 3 años, ahorita tiene 6, casi 7, y mantener constantemente el recuerdo de su papá, de que el papá la quiere, la ama, que el papá era la que la ayudaba a vestirse, que el papá era la que jugaba con ella, que en la noche se ponían a hacer juegos en la cama. Es muy difícil para Mariam recordar esto, pero ella lo intenta. Ella intenta recordar porque ella siente que le extraña mucho a su papá, siente que le falta esta figura diariamente, hasta cuando va en el colegio, porque esta niña tiene papá y yo, ¿dónde está el mío? ¿Cuándo regresa? Este año ha sido un año diferente porque esta Navidad que está llegando, porque Mariam el año pasado decía, mi papá va a llegar y se lo decía a todo el mundo. Y cuando llega la Navidad, Mariam me dice que yo había sido mentirosa, que el papá no había logrado regresar a la casa. Este año es diferente porque ella a Santa Claus le pide que su papá regrese, pero al mismo tiempo ella ya no cree ella ya siente ese sentimiento de frustración, ella ya no está segura que el papá va a regresar. Y esto me duele porque si una niña siente esto, significa que hay que luchar más para que ella sí pueda tener la seguridad, que pueda volver a tener este recuerdo con su papá, pueda volver a abrazarlo, pueda volver a jugar con él.
¿Qué pasó, mi gorda?
Papi, quiero que llames a mami porque te quiero hablar, papi. Soy Mariam, soy Charlotte.
Envían esto audio, realmente yo le digo, grábanlo como para enviárselo, pero realmente yo se lo estoy enviando a mi hermana, se lo reenvío, como para que ellas sientan que puedan también enviarle audio a su papá como otra persona normal. Ella siempre le envían audio al papá diciéndole que lo extrañan, que lo aman. Por favor, llámame, papá. Y a veces estos audios se los pongo en reproducción cuando Alex llama y a veces la niña no están, porque están en el colegio, están en sus actividades diarias. Pero las niñas siempre me piden enviarle mensajes al papá, le hacen dibujos en la casa. Tengo una gaveta llena de todos los dibujos que ellos hicieron durante estos 3 años y medio. Desde que Charlotte aprendió a dibujar hasta el último dibujo, siempre lo guardo en esta gaveta para que cuando Alex se regrese, él pueda abrir la gaveta y en la gaveta de los dibujos, de los recuerdos, de todos los dibujos que le hicieron.
Te amo, papi. Te extraño. Llama a mami. Te extraño.
Para nosotros es muy doloroso pensar que esta Navidad no pueda estar con nosotros. Ni siquiera lo quiero imaginar. No lo quiero imaginar ni para mí, ni para sus hijas, ni para sus hijos. El año pasado, el 24, lo pasamos en silencio. No logramos decir ni una palabra, ni compartir entre nosotros, porque sentíamos esta ausencia todo el tiempo. Este año lo único que queremos es que Alex se pueda volver a casa, pueda volver con vida, con salud, que pueda nuevamente compartir con nosotros, que pueda vivir, que nosotros podamos empezar a vivir juntos, en paz. Ya pasaron 3 años y medio. ¿Qué más quieren? ¿Qué daño más le quieren causar a la salud de Alex, a nosotros? Ya nuestras hijas ni siquiera se recuerdan de su papá. ¿Qué más quieren hacernos ellos a nosotros? El momento de de estrecharnos la mano, el momento del entendimiento, de la paz. El mundo debe ir hacia este camino.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you who have participated in today's program. I ask you again, please stand with us. Spread the news. Support us with your tax-exempt paper check that you mail to AFGJ, 225 East 26th Street, Tucson, Arizona 85713, or email afgj@afgj.org for information on how to make a donation. But as we sign off, I want you and the world to know this. To those who go to shocking extremes to close our doors and block our efforts to sustain democracy and bring justice where injustice has reigned, know this. We deplore your cowardice and dishonesty. We reject your white supremacy, your iron-fisted apartheid, and your rule over Palestine, your genocide against the people of Gaza. We fight your lies and your dishonorable attacks. We're disgusted at the way you hide behind the U.S. government and its military and economic prowess, which were stolen from the people of the U.S. and used for the cause of empire, while you act without integrity and ignore facts. We demand an end to your incendiary rhetoric. Your actions and words harm people whose only desire is to live free and unfettered lives. And we aren't going anywhere. AFGJ has been here for 25 years, and we will be here for as long as injustice and oppression continue. These doors stay open. This work goes on. Please stand with us. Thank you again. Thank you to all the people who participated in tonight's program. Thank you especially to all of you who have supported us over the years and will continue to stand firm with us. Good night.
Can I jump in there before we go? I just want to, excuse me, give a special call out to the people who have been most in the trenches in what we've been going through and the attacks against that. We've been talking a lot about the program staff and what we call the political struggle, but we would not have been able to survive this except for the diligence, the extra hours, and the thinking on their feet and general creativity in very difficult circumstances that we received from the finance staff. So really, if we're going to dedicate this broadcast to anybody, I would like to dedicate it to them and thank them. So I'm also going to just read real quickly a note that we got from the finance team. When asking for a donation today, in addition to suggesting a money order purchased at a check cashing store, post office, or grocery store, can we also suggest donating with a cashier's check, which are issued by financial institutions? The email reminders say money orders and not cashier checks, which are a good option. So, never too late. Consider sending a cashier's check. Make a pledge, send it to AFGJ at afgj.org, and we'll get back to you with how you can make contributions. Had a great time. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, please donate to us, but also, follow us on our pages on YouTube, on Instagram. That's just another way also to help us, visibilize our work and support our work. And, make sure to like this video if you're watching it on YouTube. And yeah, thank you for your support, and also, follow us on there to see more of our work. Like James said, it's only was a bit that we shared. So, if you want to learn more, follow us on our pages to check all that out. And
Great.
That's all I got to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Yeah. Thank you.